The pain and suffering that we inflict on the environment and nature is pain and suffering that will eventually be inflicted on us as a species, and we need to start thinking as a species.
It's time, let's do this, it's our time, let's do this, it's time to shine a light. Let's do this, it's time, let's do this, it's our time, let's do this, it's time to shine a light.
We did not inherit this world from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children.
Shine your light.
Thank you and good night.
Hello, I'm Sharon. I'm 14 years old and I live in India in Mumbai. Yesterday, I saw on TV that the icebergs are melting in Antarctica. My heart sank. Penguins are my favorite. Where will they go? I'm sad and worried. My cousin Ali and his family in Malaysia have had no water in their tap for 5 weeks in a row. It makes me distressed and angry. And while I was searching for answers to save water and penguins, my teacher shared about this course, Climate Change, by UNESCO NGIEP. She said, when you worry or when you're angry, first, calm yourself by taking deep breaths or going for a walk. That is mindfulness. Once the brain is calm, it can think, reflect, question, and look for conclusive answers. This is called critical inquiry. I realized what we do here in Mumbai affects Ali's access to water at his home in Malaysia and the little penguins in Antarctica too. So, why don't you do your bit by giving this course a try too?
Come on, you guys are the best of the best in the world. Namaste, everyone.
Shine your light.
Somewhere along our journey of being humans, we have forgotten that we are not the only species on this planet. We are just one among millions and millions of species on this planet.
We are all in this together. We are all in this together. And nothing can remind us like a simple act of kindness. Hey! And in the blackest of night, hey! Just one flash of light, hey! Shows we're not alone. No, not today. It is time. Let's do this. It's our time. Let's do this. It is time to shine a light. Let's do this. It is time to shine your light.
We only protect things that we love. So we should all make it our mission to make everyone fall in love with the natural world. And hopefully through that love, we will clean, protect, and conserve.
It is time. Shine your light. मैं जो साथ निभाऊं, तू जो साथ निभाए, रात बन जाए तो ये रात ढल जाए चलो हाथ बढ़ाए चलो सबको दिखाए कोई भी यहाँ अकेला ना है It is time, let's do this, it's our time, let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Come on! Whoa, whoa, whoa.
The pain and suffering that we inflict on the environment and nature is pain and suffering that will eventually be inflicted on us as a species, and we need to start thinking as a species.
It is time, let's do this, it's our time. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Let's do this, it is time. Let's do this, it's our time. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light.
We did not inherit this world from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children.
Shine your light.
Thank you and good night.
Hello, I'm Sharon. I'm 14 years old and I live in India in Mumbai. Yesterday, I saw on TV that the icebergs are melting in Antarctica. My heart sank. Penguins are my favorite. Where will they go? I'm sad and worried. My cousin Ali and his family in Malaysia have had no water in their tap for 5 weeks in a row. It makes me distressed and angry. And while I was searching for answers to save water and penguins, my teacher shared about this course, Climate Change, by UNESCO NGIEP. She said, when you worry or when you're angry, first calm yourself by taking deep breaths or going for a walk. That is mindfulness. Once the brain is calm, it can think, reflect, question, and look for conclusive answers. This is called critical inquiry.
Come on, you guys are the best of the best in the world. Namaste, everyone.
Shine your light.
Somewhere along our journey of being humans, we have forgotten that we are not the only species on this planet. We are just one among millions and millions of species on this planet.
We are all in this together. We are all in this together. And nothing can remind us.
Hello? your seats. Thank you.
Hello? Hello? Okay? Okay.
In case you get some disturbance,
आप मुझे बोल दीजिए आप मुझे
साथ निभाए तो बात बन जाए तो ये रात ढल जाए चलो हाथ बढ़ाए चलो सबको दिखाए कोई भी यहाँ अकेला ना है It is time, let's do this, it's our time, let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Come on! Whoa, 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 whoa.
The pain and suffering that we inflict on the environment and nature is pain and suffering that will eventually be inflicted on us as a species, and we need to start thinking as a species.
It is time, let's do this, it's our time. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light. Let's do this, it is time. Let's do this, it's our time. Let's do this, it is time to shine a light.
We did not inherit this world from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children.
Shine your light.
Thank you and good night.
Hello? Could you please take your seats? We'll have to start. I would kindly request you to close the doors. We're starting in a minute. Part, we start? Give me the sign when it starts. Now? Good afternoon, distinguished guests. Welcome to our TAGe event on peace education, which Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development organized in partnership with Y20 Secretariat. Talking across generation on education is a unique advocacy tool for youth that amplifies youth voices and invites youth to participate in this dialogue from all type of background. TAGe creates a safe platform for them to have unrestricted, non-hierarchical, and transparent dialogue with decision makers. On the one hand, it is a platform which gives an opportunity for youth to share their innovative ideas, concerns, and thoughts on the subject matter with decision makers and also with the entire world. And on the other hand, it is a platform that enables decision makers to communicate their thoughts, their ideas, their point of view with youth. The ultimate goal of TAGe is to engage both generations into a productive discussion, dialogue, and let decision makers hear and understand youth and truly integrate their ideas into their policy, their future policies. My name is Nasreddinova Fazola, and I'm leading youth projects at UNESCO MGIP. MGIP is first research institute of UNESCO in the Asia-Pacific region and was established with the support of the government of India. The institute focuses on SDG 4.7, which is peaceful and sustainable societies. Our vision is to build kinder brains and transform education for humanity. Through our science-based programs, we mainstream social and emotional learning, innovative digital pedagogies, and put youth as global citizens at the center of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. At this moment, I'd like to ask you to log in Mentimeter, which is mentimeter.com. Could you please display the information? And answer us, how are you feeling at this moment? We would like to get your real feeling right now before we start this event. I'll not open the whole secret, but there is a reason we're asking you to respond to that. And after you respond to this question, I'd like to draw your attention that we will have a second round questions on Mentimeter, which I would request you all to answer, because the best answers will be granted with UNESCO MGIP's merchandise. I would kindly request you to write your name and your country, because while we will be distributing it, it will be easier for us to identify you. Today, I am also honored to present our moderators, Chief Coordinator of Y20 Secretariat, Mr. Patikrit Paine. Please, Mr. Patikrit Paine. Please sit. And our co-moderator, Ms. Shreya Tiwari, National Project Officer and SEL Expert of UNESCO MGIP. Thank you. And of course, our event cannot start if we do not invite our dear panelists who are traveling to India from all around the world. So, Mr. Srikant Yagnamurthy, please. He's from India. Please take a seat. Ms. Brownwayne February, South Africa. Mr. Ajay Yadav, Nepal. Thank you. Ms. Haley Stone, USA. Mr. Mohammad Amin Salihi, Afghanistan. Ms. Ingrid Sis, Brazil. Thank you, Mrs. Mr. Jackson Raimundo, Brazil. Ms. Louise O'Reilly, Ireland. And Mr. Himanshu Pandey from India. Let's greet our panelists once more. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I know that for some of you, the flight was really long. It was like even as long as 35 hours. That's really long, and thank you for being here and making it. Thank you. Over to you, moderators. Thank you.
Just an introduction, yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the TAGe. Just very quickly before we begin, as Fazola mentioned, we are going to do a check-in on Menti. So we request you to use your phones, go to your browser, click on menti.com, and there would be a code that would be displayed. Karina, if you can just announce the code, that would be helpful as well. And there is a question that will pop up on what your current emotion is. The idea is to begin this journey together for the next 90 minutes with a check-in, an emotion check-in. Once you've done that, we would also request you to participate with us, engage with us using the menti.com, where the next question will pop up. That question is essentially what your questions are for us, all of us. So if you have a thought, you have a question, you have a query or a clarification that you may seek, feel free to put it on menti.com. Our teams are going to constantly be in touch and look out for your questions. And like Fazola said, we're going to talk about those questions in the end. We'll try to address the clarifications and queries as we go along. And the fun part is that the questions which are most exciting will get a surprise present from MGIEP. So yes, so that's what I wanted to start with. Karina, could you please display the first question? Okay. While the Menti is coming on screen with the results, I'm going to invite Pathikrit to share the opening note.
Well, thank you, Shreya. There's a certain amount of echo if that can be managed. Well, I've told Shreya to tell me when my 15 minutes gets over, otherwise I may end up speaking for 1.5 hours. That is my problem. Thank you everyone for being here, and we are honored to be in Varanasi, the city where since eternity people used to come for one thing, for seeking inner peace. And today what we lack in its entirety is the peace of mind. And so over the last 9 months, as part of Y20 India Secretariat, we have almost reached out to 3 to 4 lakh students, perhaps even 500,000, talking about pertinent issues that that are rocking the world, and often we are asking very difficult questions. So if you look at the theme of G20 India, it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one world, one family, one future. Now what does Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam essentially indicate? What is the message that India is trying to send out? The moment you start thinking that the whole world is one family, you will not try to get into conflicts. Because whichever way the conflict takes shape, whoever wins, whoever loses, it is your loss because it's your family. Unfortunately, for a long period of time, in spite of the fact when Second World War ended, it was hoped that there would be peace. The world is always divided between us versus them in every aspect. Every war is because of us versus them, and then the media telling us which side is correct and which side is wrong. Nobody talks about let's solve a dispute before it takes the shape of a conflict. Number one is that. And the question is, while multilateral institutions, and I'm sure all of you here are public policy students, international relations students, tomorrow you will be policymakers, it's important to understand, Prime Minister of India over the last so many years have talked about one very specific thing. Since 1945, when multilateral institutions were created to prevent conflicts, to create a better world, they have done a phenomenal job. But the question is whether time has come for them also to introspect as to whether they require reforms or not. Whether enough was done to prevent a conflict in Iraq or to prevent a conflict in Ukraine. Whether enough was done to prevent a conflict in Syria or in Libya. Or whether there is a double standard somewhere that we talk too much about Russia and Ukraine, but we don't talk much when a war happens in Sudan or in Ethiopia. We talk about peace today. Let me share an example. 500,000 children in Iraq died because of the Gulf War, because there were sanctions because of which Iraq was not even allowed to import critical medicines. Now, what peace are we talking about? And that's a fundamental question somebody has to answer, that we are not in a world where everything is going right. And the better, sooner we accept that there are issues that needs to be addressed, the better it would be. Whether the COVID pandemic could have been prevented is an issue. Can you imagine the entire amount of mental turmoil this COVID pandemic brought in? Was the right kind of efforts being made by the institutions whose job was to prevent pandemics? Did they do it? Well, there are enough evidence against that. So I'll start with another example. Today morning I was reading that there was a judge in California who had mistakenly shot his wife. And when police came, it was found that he lives with 26,000 rounds of bullets and 47 guns. I mean, why on earth would somebody live with 26,000 rounds of bullets? What is happening to this world today where somebody at the age of 20, 21, takes a gun, goes to a college, goes to a school, indiscriminately shoots down children? What development are we talking about? If development, prosperity eventually is leading to this, where children are being sent to school potentially with bulletproof jackets, then there's a fundamental problem somewhere as to what kind of education we have. There's a recent incident, and I'm not just trying to blame the West, it's not so. There's a recent incident which happened in Jadavpur University in Kolkata. A 17-year-old first-year student was abused mentally, physically, sexually, and was beaten to death out of sheer sadistic pleasure of some students who have just graduated out and were still living in that campus. Something is fundamentally lagging with our education system somewhere. And this is where the Prime Minister time and again spoke one thing, that as we talk about modernization, as we talk about technology, as we embrace better things of life, it has to be connected and embedded with the concept of family, with the concept of traditions, with the concept of ancient wisdoms, with the concept of spirituality, with the concept of ethos, and above all, with the concept of my sense of responsibility, a greater responsibility for greater good. Somewhere we are lacking it. We talk about peace. Shreya asked a question, what kind of emotions are right now going on? Most of us, most of the time, suffer from conflicting emotions at any period of time, right? And we don't have that peace of mind because meditation, making the mind calm, was never a priority in our entire education system. It was never told that it doesn't matter if you do not, crack a very important exam, whether it is a JEE or a NEET. Why should you commit suicide? Today we have entered an era of technology where if somebody gets a lesser number of likes in Instagram or Facebook, those young people are committing suicides even for that. So there is something wrong in what we are teaching to our students in our coming generations, wherein they are more interested in online games than to actually physically go out and play the real games. The group dynamics, the team spirit, the competitive mentality, and that ability to go ahead, come what may, is lacking somewhere. In the last 9 months, let me tell you before I end, I won't take much time. The Y20 team consisting of around 70 odd people. We have been one of the better performers among all the Y20 engagement groups. Can you imagine 1,000 plus events have been conducted across the country. The team, most of the time, fought, okay? We all fought with each other. But eventually when actual results came out, in spite of the fights internally, for the rest of the world, we performed phenomenally. And for that, the credit goes to each and every individual. Because we knew that as you work in a group, there will be challenges. Because always it is important to understand that when you move out of the self and work with the group for a greater good, challenges remain. But eventually, since the result was more important than anything else, we made sure that performance happens best. Fights were for that, not for ego. So that group dynamics has to be developed. Last but not the least, when we talk about development, can we have a very, very successful life where the concept of family is breaking down, where parents are being only called birthing people, where we don't care about our cousins anymore, friends anymore, we're just living alone, and then we don't have anyone to fall on to when a real crisis strikes us. During COVID, one of the biggest reasons why we survived as a country in India, in spite of the huge population we have, is because the family, the neighborhood helped each other. So, please understand, as you progress in life, you might be very successful. Never forget the importance of your family and the friends. That so much is very important. And in addition to that, what the Prime Minister has always mentioned, and we talk about it everywhere, holistic healthcare development. Our vaccine manufacturers in India did a phenomenal job in terms of making sure that more than 200 crore plus vaccines are administered free of cost. Imagine the level of logistical work that was happening behind that. But also, in addition to that, what worked for us was our food habits. The typical lentils that we always refused to take when our parents used to tell us, you must take this. The sabzi which we were not taking, but the parents told us, you must take it. The nutritional value of your food habits. The kadha that you were made to drink. The turmeric, the neem. So eventually what I'm trying to say is that the world over, you will find however much you spend, however much you succeed, there is a sense of loneliness in most of us. And that sense of loneliness can only go where you go back to your roots. You go back to your ethos, you go back to your family. So education in schools will invariably get reformed. But unless the education starts from the family itself, you can say that I'm an individual, I am better than everybody else. Nothing in this world can replace the wisdom that the mother gives to the son or the child before even she or he goes to the school. And never ever ignore that. If we start, unfortunately in the last 78 years, we have ignored that and given more priority to formal education. So invariably, if the world has to be a better place, institutions have to be reformed, education has to be reformed, we need to talk about moral science. You know, I remember the moral science class when you were young was the most boring class. But today we realize that morality part is the most important thing that leaves behind. That we make sure that when a catastrophe strikes, you don't think about whether the country in which there's a catastrophe is our friend or enemy. When there was a huge earthquake in Turkey, Turkey is not our friend, okay? In certain ways, there are major differences. But the first country which went with disaster response force to help was India. The country which gave vaccines to 90 plus countries, when many other developing countries were not giving, with all due respect, was India. Because what's the world if you end up having half the population dead out of a pandemic? So there are human ethos that has to be taught, even as being successful, being competitive, being professional. These are all important things. I think over the last 9 months, we have tried in every way. The team itself, the Y20 team, has evolved. And today I'm sure all of them are far better human beings, competitive, because they know today what it takes to work in a difficult environment with difficult constraints and perform and yet not give up. So I'll end here. If there are questions, I will try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. that note. Clearly, there's enough data, enough evidence here that tells us something in the way education is, the systems are functioning, the way education is being delivered, something is not going right. As you were talking, Patiket, I would urge you to also look at the screen at the back. There's some very interesting emotion check-ins that have come in. Thank you so much for checking in with yourself and sharing that with us. Just for those of you who are not familiar with the idea of a word cloud, the word that you see in the center, which is in the largest font, is the one that's most, it has the greatest frequency. So it's probably curious and excited, yeah, and cool are some of the most visited and written words in the responses. So thank you for sharing that. We are going to continue this, and also as we go on in the debate and the conversation, we would urge you to also start throwing up your questions on Menti. Thanks. On that note, while we're getting into the discussion, and I'm going to invite my panelists on this note as well, in 1945, the preamble of UNESCO actually talked about peace education. So just to read it out, it says, since wars begin in the minds of men and women, it is in the minds of men and women that the defenses of peace must be constructed. This is 1945. We're just 12 years away from hitting a decade, a century of talking about peace education. That's pretty close. I would want to invite the panelists here, and I want to understand from you, what is your reflection on this? How far do you feel we've come in this discussion on peace education? What are our practices? Where are they going? What's missing? What is some of your opening thought? Why don't we start with you, Browner? Just in the interest of time, I'm going to request you to keep it about a minute. Thank you.
So I will then firstly speak to the intentional relationships that we set up with civil organizations and communities. So that's what we're missing. If we are not intentional about the relationships that we create with organizations as a systematic approach where young people, they can actually basically showcase what they have learned through peace education, through the social emotional learning curriculum that is being rolled out, then there's going to be something missing because there's no place for them to practice what they have been taught, right? And if that is missing, then there's a missing loophole where young people don't really have an opportunity to change the shape of the environment, change the shape of the realities. And that's why our young people are still stuck. That's why our young people are still where they are, back to what you're referring to. I think that's all I'm going to say for now. Yeah.
You've been designing curriculums for a long time. You've been reviewing them. You've been now also in the space of assessment. What is your reflection on, what do you think is your reflection on what's going on with peace education?
As a delegate from Ireland, I can reflect on what has happened in our country. We had conflict for a very long time, and in 1998 we signed the Good Friday Agreement, which ended terrorism in the north of Ireland. And since that time, education has formed a central plank of rebuilding communities. From the beginning, the peace education has focused on intercultural exchange, on getting to know the other side, the perspectives of other people, and that has formed a central tenet of initiatives, both political, educational and social initiatives in Ireland. And to date, it's not perfect, but we have come a long way on a road towards peace, where we have generations of young people who don't remember a time of conflict, which for me gives us hope that going into the future, when we look at peace education, that we are looking at building those mindsets where we can understand and empathize with the others that was mentioned earlier. There's always us and them. I think if we understand that we are we, and we understand where everyone's perspective is coming from, that we work towards a society and community where we have empathy and we can understand the rights of all people within those communities, but also the responsibilities to uphold those rights across those communities. So for me, peace education at this stage is hopeful.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. Clearly,
Just one thing, Shreya. Can you please manage the echo part? There's a lot of echo happening. And for audience, it becomes very difficult to hear when there's so much of echo.
Is there, okay, audible? Better? Okay. Okay, thanks. That's also very hopeful, Luis, and thank you for sharing what education has been able to do in your country and the fact that it has been able to change the narrative and people have been able to overcome the conflict. Although that's an interesting perspective, and I know you also spoke about the other side, but just to dwell on this a little further, interestingly, the Global Peace Index is constantly on the rise. I'm sure you know about that. And while we're seeing the peace index rising, on the other hand, we're all also witnessing global situations of conflict. I mean, and not just what's always on the media, but also at a personal level, right? What we witness on a daily basis in our daily lives. What do you think about this, Haley? Why do you think this is happening? The fact that global peace index is showing something and our real lives are showing us something else? You'll have to repeat, sorry, and yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, guys. We actually spoke about this at dinner last slide a little bit. And I think one of the reasons that we're seeing both the Global Peace Index and the increase in conflict happening simultaneously is just because the world is more interconnected than it's ever been. And we're so used to being online and seeing everything happen around us. But because of that, it also gives us access to what's happening around the world. So while you see conflicts all over the place and in communities are being resolved, at the same time, conflicts are emerging in new places. And so I don't think it's necessarily fair to say that more conflicts are resolved than there are being created. I just think that as a world, we're more aware of it than we have been ever before.
You're saying it's essentially more discussed now?
Yes, absolutely. And there are more resources for everyone to be aware of what's happening around us. That's larger than just what's going on at school.
So if more people are talking about it, why is that index still rising? I'm going to ask Professor Shrikant, why do you think that's happening? You've done a lot of work on EMIS as well, I know that.
When it comes to global peace, we all know that, countries are competing with each other, individuals are competing with each other, societies are competing with each other. And somewhere down the line, we are also of the view that the dopamine levels are increasing and serotonin levels are going down. These two kind of neurotransmitters have different role to play. When it comes to dopamine, it relates largely with the kind of addictions that we have, whether it is drinks or eating or consumerism and things, shopping and things like that, as opposed to serotonin levels, which are very important, and they help in giving happiness. So pleasure is always differentiated with happiness. So what people require is happiness and not simply the pleasure, So the kind of competition that is driving all across, that is leading to these kinds of issues. the peace. We are not at peace with ourselves, and we are not in peace with neighbors, and this is all leading to all kinds of troubles. Somewhere self-restraint, contentment is very critical in terms of changing the global scenario.
Thanks, but you also very nicely evaded my question on the Global Peace Index. Do you think something's wrong with the instrument there, which is not able to capture what you just said?
Yes, in fact, when it comes to, the league tables that we have for everything, like OECD's, PISA, etc., so they're all that's what I'm saying indirectly, they're all leading to competition. So we are not at peace with ourselves. So peace comes with contentment, and contentment is, largely driven by happiness. So if we are happy, then we'll be content, and, so problems will not be there. So somewhere down the line, we should encourage cooperation among the people, supporting each other like a family. We have in the relationship with each other in the family, there is no problem at all. Everybody does whatever one is capable of. When it comes to outside the family, so the things are very different. We are a competitive world.
Interestingly, that's when education and the role of education comes in.
Yes.
So that's clearly something that's not going right. I mean, you spoke of family. Even Pathikrit in his, in his conversation opening remark also talked about that. So something clearly, the moment the idea of education goes beyond family, it's some hidden curriculum aspects which come in and they automatically kick in and gear the human brain in a very different way. Thank you also for the kind of remarks you said on the neuroscientific discoveries and the kind of facts that the group also needed to talk about.
And
yes,
yeah.
you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just
Please
want to tell you that, when I said that competition, we are focusing on cognitive domain, ignoring affective and psychomotor domains, and this is also leading to serious problems. In fact, cognitive domain is overbaked, psychomotor domain is half-baked, and affective domain is unbaked. In the sense, we have never tried to understand the child, the relationship with the family, and the community. All these are serious challenges.
Thank you for that. I'm going to, I know I've had a wonderful conversation with some of our panelists here. I'm going to request my panelists and also the audience here to go back and think of a moment where you felt so triggered that you wanted to resort to a violent means. Violence not just in terms of physical violence, it could be just emotional, it could be what you said, what you felt like doing, the way you communicated. We've all been in those situations. And we're also a group of people who've been educated. And I also know some of my panelists here have very closely witnessed violence. What are some of your reflections? And I'm going to invite you in, Himanshu, on this. If you feel comfortable sharing, what would you have done differently in the situation that you have witnessed in your life?
Thank you, Shreya. I guess somebody very smart, and that's not me, has said, violence is the easiest solution to conflict. All of us always would have moments in our lives, and because of what I have seen very closely, sometimes we don't know how to navigate conflict other than violence. And that's where I would look at the structures that make navigate conflict much easier. The reason why peace index is okay, maybe that's something that you're. Everybody is good at something, right? Somebody might be good at playing badminton, somebody might be a wonderful poet. Look at good at. How did you reach there? You have done thousands of hours of practice to be there, right? If you were playing badminton, you have played it for hours and hours to get really good at it. If it was poetry, you have written a lot of it, you've recited a lot of it, and that's how you got there. But at what point to navigate conflict gracefully? At what point were we prepared to learn that skill in which we could navigate conflict without using violence? And I guess that's been the biggest failure of the generation that was before us. And to build a peaceful world, we have opportunities and beyond them that prepare us to navigate conflict.
Thanks, Himanshu. I mean, you're a teacher. You are already working with students. What is it that you do? What is it that you do that you feel sort of capacitates your student in situations like where they would want to perhaps resort to a means which is not very peaceful? Clearly, everybody knows there should be non-violence. Everyone knows about this ideal. What is it in education that you deliver that you think can and the way the children grow up?
Well, to respond to this, I would suggest first of all, to make the students understand about the peace and have a peaceful mindset is always praise them for the small things that they do, for tiny things that they do. So if it is something positive, we have to praise them for that. Then they will think that let's do some other positive things, so we'll get more praise. Because all humans, we naturally, we want to be praised in society and environment. And the other thing is consistency also matter in this matter. To feed them the idea of peace, or to make them peaceful with their mindset. So we have to keep going constantly. Every day when I am teaching them, beside that I have to use some words or good words for 2 minutes or 1 minute, just as a hint daily. So for 6 months, 1 year, continuously, if we keep this constant and moving, so it will affect them and in a long run. So the thing is to keep moving and injecting idea into their brain, injecting the idea into their brain daily, and that is also not the matter from the teacher side. So the environment also and their family is also important in this scenario. So only teacher will say teach them positivity and everything related to peace or being in harmony with each other. But at the meantime, the family also matter. So the family have to focus, because the students spend only 4 or 5 hours in school, but the remaining they spend with their family and in society. So to reach a point that we should have peace in our society, as will work, the teachers and the community and the families, parents, everyone together. Yeah.
Interesting how thank you so much for your sharing. It's interesting how family seems to be a recurring theme when it comes to peace education. That's something we should definitely come back to. I'm going to invite you, Ajay. I know you have shared how you've had some experiences, and you have also faced, issues of how caste has been, directly affected you and, your experience growing up. Do you want to talk about how you turned from being called a dhoti to a person whom people would seek out and, ask for knowledge, or be the person people would want to go to for approval? Do you want to tell me how your education equipped you to build and bridge that gap? And you might want to explain what dhoti means to that audience.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So, I belong to southern part of Nepal. It's called Janakpur, and I believe many of us have been familiar with that word if you know Lord Sita. So I came to Kathmandu in my second grade for my further education, and I actually didn't know how to speak English, how to speak Nepali. I just knew how to speak Maithili. And on my day one, I had to, like, a friend of mine actually called this, like, had a nickname for me and it was Dhoti. So I was like, what is this? Because in my village, my grandfather wear dhoti and that's the only thing which I know about dhoti. But later on, I got to know that that's a word they give to the people coming from the southern part of Nepal. And I just me Ajay, but calling me Dhoti. Well, that was one story. When I was coming to the market and usually the person who sell vegetable in Kathmandu, most of them are from southern Nepal. And it was quite interesting to see how there was one auntie. She might be have been of age like 55 to 60 years old, but she was called one brother who was just of age 25 to 30, bhaiya. So a grandmother calling someone of the age of a son bhaiya was another interesting thing for me. And later on, I got to know that those are the words that actually are created to people from different geographical region. But I stay very close to Pashupatinath, and I also believe many of us are familiar with Lord Pashupatinath. So there are many people from different parts of the world come, and I have been staying there over a long time, so I know different information regarding the Pashupati. So one day, when I graduated from high school, I was just sitting there, and I met a guy who was wearing a tika, and he was a foreigner. And then I went there and I said, Namaste, where are you from? He said, brother, I don't have money, please don't talk with me.
Oh my God.
I was like, why? What's the issue? And well, he was cheated by someone. And I said, see, my stance is clear. I don't want any money, but I want a story from you. And in return, I'm going to give you the story about Pashupati. And it worked, actually. I started telling him a story about Pashupati, and he started telling story about his life, how he was in USA and how he was about to commit a suicide, and then how he came here in Nepal to find a way to enhance his life. And then this was pretty interesting phenomenon because someone was telling me their story because when I was willing to tell my story. And I started to go in Pashupati and I started to hear different stories and share them the stories of Pashupati. And during this process, something that hit me was, when we are really willing to listen to each other, when we are really willing to accept each other, magic can happen. And magic can happen in the form of story. So here, I am someone from Nepal, but someone from Nepal calling me Dhoti, not trying to accept me, but someone who is miles and miles apart from me, totally different in language and culture and communication, all those things, but is very much willing to share this story. So I felt, my school was not able to teach me how to tell a story. The situation in Pashupati actually helped me to tell a story, actually taught me how to tell a story, and that simple thing, storytelling became a tool for me to communicate and for me to make people understand and see we are different. Yeah, we are different, but still we can be connected. Still, we can have a magic through storytelling. So, peace education, thing which is currently lacking in our current education system, are those simple things. We are not taught how to accept each other's differences. We are not taught that how we can be different, but yet when we work together, magic can happen. So those were the learnings which I got from the place where I belong to. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ajay. That's so interesting. You using the word story. And what I hear you say is also just acknowledging the fact that we are different and finding a way to engage in a Socratic dialogue almost. To say, okay, here's how we are different, let's talk about it, and can we find ways to celebrate our differences? I think that's just so beautifully put. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ajay. Yes, go on.
So I'll just tell you one thing. What you talked about, the difference. There is a very important slok in Sanatan Dharma, which is generally called Hinduism, which says that Ekam Sat Vipra Vahuda Vadanti, which means that there is one truth. But there are different ways to reach that truth. So it has been in our core essence of ancient philosophy of India to accept the divergent view. If you look at whether you talk about Mahabharata, it was a conversation between Kurukshetra or Bhagavad Gita was a conversation between an Arjun, who was not willing to believe Krishna, and Krishna was explaining it. There are different viewpoints. The second thing, Shreya, when it comes to education, there are two things which I find which must teach. and must be included in curriculum. Number one, we are still having a world, we live in a world where mental health is considered a taboo. People are unwilling to accept that mental health is a reality. So the moment somebody wants to go to a psychiatrist, the society starts terming him as mad. This has to change. This has to change. Having a psychiatric problem does not mean that that person is mad. As Sir rightly mentioned about our food habit, lifestyle is having an impact on the serotonin level. And number two is the concept of resilience. Our education system must teach us how to deal with completely disruptive situations in our life. COVID was a disruptive environment. I deal with many startups who start with the presumption that he is going to be the next Narayan Murthy. That's a great thing. But Narayan Murthy went through decades of struggle, and many of the people are not willing to go through that churning period. The Manthan, even in Samudra Manthan, the first thing that came out was poison. Amrit came later on. That resilience is so very important to develop that, look, the world is not going to be the way I believe it to be. I have to deal with situations which are uncertain. And how I, that situation, I hope and I sincerely expect the education system would teach us, sometimes put us through that situation, that I evolve as a better person. That is, it's not about marks. It's not about mugging up and getting 100. Can you imagine a situation in Delhi today, or if you look at the CBSE exam, the lowest marks is 99%. You know, if you get 99%, you don't get admission to colleges. Does it mean that everybody becomes successful eventually? It's not about marks. It's about most of the great organizations in the world were created by college dropouts. How is it possible? Because that self-confidence is what is important that has to be taught. Shreya, sorry for this interview.
No, thanks for bringing it. I'm not very sure how much of our audience understands the idea of Samudra Manthan. But for those who don't, catch him during dinner. I would also want to invite you, Jackson. You know, you have perhaps also faced many, yes. And we have a translator for Jackson, yes. So, you know, Jackson, you must have also been, you know, you must have witnessed many scenarios where you must have felt triggered, right? Do you think when you got educated, your education actually equipped you to deal with that reality? What would you want to perhaps do differently, or maybe continue doing if it worked well, as a part of your education? Because right now I know you work with the ministry. What is it that you would want to continue to do, and what is it that how your education prepared you for scenarios like these?
Hello everyone. First, I ask permission to speak in Portuguese. My English isn't very good. I have a friend, translator friend. Todo mundo que já passou pela escola, com certeza enfrentou problemas relacionados à violência no ambiente educacional.
Everybody who has already passed through a school has already faced problems related to violence.
Problemas que eram tidos décadas atrás, e aqui eu falo como um homem que não é tão jovem, também não é maduro, ainda problemas como o machismo, como a xenofobia, homofobia e outros mais, hoje não são mais aceitos. É necessário que a escola enfrente todos os preconceitos, toda a cultura do ódio existente na sociedade.
I'm a middle-aged man, and I know that the problems that we live in now are not problems of nowadays. However, we live in a moment that sexism, violence, gender violence are not more acceptable in our society.
No Brasil, de onde eu venho, e onde eu atualmente estou como coordenador na Secretaria de Educação Superior do Ministério da Educação, no Brasil, nós temos lidado com o problema da cultura de paz, com a questão da cultura de paz nas escolas, e lidado com o enfrentamento à violência no ambiente da educação.
I'm currently the coordinator of Superior College in Brazil, and we are facing the challenges of establishment PC culture in our educational system.
Eu cito duas ações que para nós são fundamentais, dois caminhos que para nós são centrais, que são o seguinte: o primeiro, now I speak in English. My point is the need to deepen the relationship between culture and education. Recent data from the report Culture and Democracy, the Evidence, produced by the European Commission on Education, Health, Sport and Culture, show the correlation between participation in cultural activities and social and civic engagement. The study pointed out that young people involved in artist culture programs were 21 more likely to participate in political and community life. And an eloquent result brought by the research is that the 1% increase in culture consumption is related to a 20% decrease in hate crimes. In Brazil, we have been working in this direction, expanding action between the ministries of education and culture, especially those aimed at training in schools and universities. And also, recently, the Ministry of Education, where I come from, launched the Escola em Tempo Integral program in order to increase the permanence of children and young people in schools all day long, in addition to another program aimed at connectivity in schools. In addition, this year we constituted an interministerial group that has been developing actions to promote a culture of peace in schools.
Thank you, Jackson. That's very heartening to know what the ministry... Better? Okay. Thank you, Jackson. It's heartening to see what the ministry has been doing. Thank you for sharing some of these insights. I want to invite you, Ingrid. I know you're also a mother and you're a very hands-on mother. I want to ask you. You are raising a child, and we've discussed a lot about family, right? And how peace education somehow is very linked to family. I want to explore that with you. How do you, what is the choice that you make, and how do you equip the communities that you work with, and also your own child, on how to deal when one is triggered?
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Like my friend Jackson, I'm a Brazil, so I will talk very slow, and if it's something not good, I will ask for my friend help me, okay? So first, I want to say some little things. And in Brazil, in the last 10 days, we lost 2 young people and 1 child. And this person is killed for the police. And when we think about social and emotional learnings and education, we have to think in this context. And one that's children, one that's young people, have killed inside of the school. And this is a big problem. Me, like a mother, I cry so much when my children go to the school for the first time, because I'm afraid that what is going to happen. And the teacher of my children say that it's okay because the school is a social born of 1 kid. And this is so much for me. And it's okay. me, like a mother, I'm talking to the staff of the event, that is very important to me, be a mother that gives to affect, a mother that gives the love, the mother that gives for my children hugs, and they can say for them that can be children. They can cry, they can be afraid, they can feeling everything they are feeling. And I know this is important for our children and much more for our society, because one children that have this education will grow up and will be a better person. And this is they gonna be a person that can understand the social problems of the violence. When I say in Brazil, we have children, we have young people be killed in the school. We have to understand the society, see these things, and ask for more policials, for more acting of the government. But it's not more action of the government for talk about social education. It's not about talk about social learning. It's talk about more active, more actions, violence, more policials. And I think this is because they don't have the education what I try to pass for my children. They don't have one context that understands the cry with your kid when they cry. I have one situation with my kid in that they cry so much. Who is mother know that every kid have this moment. They just want cry and you don't know why. And you be crazy because you don't want to hurt your crying, but it's all you wanted to do. So I have one moment and he is crying so much and I'm stop and say for her, do you wanna cry? Yes. They say yes. I say, okay. So we're gonna cry together. We're gonna cry, and when you're gonna pass, it's okay. So we cry together. He is because, I don't know. I still don't know. And me is because he is crying. So when everything passes, we look for each other and they say, it's okay? They say, okay, it's okay, mother. I'll say, it's okay too. So we go and...
Thanks, Ingrid. That's very interesting. I wonder what implication it has for teacher education. If you cry, I cry. It just tells me that crying is contagious. But thank you for sharing that. That's a very interesting example. And on this note, I want to also share something that you had talked about. Did you know that we can train our minds to be peaceful? It's actually just a simple training. All decision making, and it's a very interesting scenario, if the child is crying, the decision that a mother is taking, or a teacher, in the case that he shared, or what Ajay shared, decision making is not just always a cognitive process. We are made to believe so, that the more we think about it and the more rational we are, the better decision we're going to make. It doesn't work like that. Your brains are constantly listening and they are wired to listen to how you're also feeling. So it's always an emotional and a cognitive process. So it's a combination of the two. And it's a training, like Sir had said, and this is purely from the findings of the neuroscience, and I would urge those of you who are interested to go and explore something which we have recently published on IC, which is ISEE. We'll share the links of that also as we close the session. But you know, the findings, we did find that mindset shifts are needed for peace education, because for decades we've been talking cognitively about peace education. We've been talking about it. We talk about how important it is. We do curricularizing around it. We do teacher training on it. But all of it is focused on why it's important and how it can be done. And at no place are we actually trying to cause the mind shift that's needed for peace education, for the brain to be actually trained to be more peaceful. With this note, I'm going to invite you to engage in a little snippet of an activity with us. Can we have the slide, please? Please be comfortable. Sit comfortably, and I'm going to request my panelists also. Take a minute. Clear the things from your hand. Get your mind ready. If you want, you can close your eyes. You've been hearing a lot of conversation that we've been having. Some may have triggered you, some may have moved you, some may not have. Try to use the framework that's up on the slide and try to identify sensations that you are able to witness. Start exploring what it is that you feel. I do invite you, ma'am. Start exploring what it is that you feel around your chest. If it's being tired, if it's just a feeling of drowsiness, or it's alert, or it's a feeling of boredom, or it's a feeling of inspiration, where does it sit in your body? Does it sit in your chest? Does it sit in your arms? Where in your arms are you feeling it? Does it sit in your legs? Does it sit around your mouth? Let's take 30 seconds to do this body scan. Thanks. I'm hoping this is just a starting point for our next exercise. Stay with the sensations that you've just acknowledged. Karina, can we have the next slide, please? We're going to do something called as finger breathing. I'm going to request you to use your hand. Use your hand. Raise your hand to show me that you're with me. Start here. As you move your finger, stay with your sensations. Close your eyes if you need. Breathe in as you go up. Breathe out as you go down. Go up and down. Do it at your pace. Do it 2 times. You go up and down. And once you've done your full hand 2 times, feel free to come back to the room. Thank you. This is an exercise that begins with acknowledging what your bodily sensations are, and what you just experienced is a beginning exercise for emotional regulation. It doesn't always need to have eyes closed, and it's not the only way. There can be many ways in which we can train our minds and our brains to take decisions which are also emotionally rooted, and you're able to take decisions which are more kind because your brain starts to alter. That's social emotional learning. What we do as a part of the institute, the Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Education, for Peace and Sustainable Development, all our offerings are embedded in social and emotional learnings, and the findings of which are based on neuroscience. That's something you experience. And when we say we try to mainstream social emotional competencies, what we essentially are saying is one's own ability to become more kinder and tap into this very natural resource that lies inside of you. On this note, I'm going to open this session to our audience. If you have any questions to any of us, or a general question or a comment, I see hands already. Do jump in. Do we have a mic that side?
Hello. Hi. Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. Luis from Mexico, delegate for the Future of Work track. Thank you for sharing your insight on education on peace building. Let me be a little bit extensive with my question. How can we ensure peace building education outside the classroom? And my question goes in two senses. First, I was a high school teacher in a high school which was aimed at guys and girls from a complex social economic contexts who had experienced violence, addictions, teenage pregnancies, for example. So in my experience, we could build up a lot with these guys, boys and girls, but when they came back to their houses, their parents or their context could either build up or destroy what we were working with them. So how can we ensure that we continue to educate our students outside the classroom, first of all? And second, for those who don't have access to formal education.
Sorry, just want to clarify, I hear you right. Yeah, we're not able to... So
No,
could
can you? Okay.
There's too much echo.
Yes,
Is there a
I
way
think
to
it's
fix
the
this,
echo.
please?
Or maybe just without the microphone. Yes, how can we ensure that peace building education continues outside the classroom? And how can we ensure that for those who don't have access to formal education, in the sense that some of the students may not fulfill, reach, or end their education either formally, they usually have to acquire it by other means with informal platforms, e-learning and some stuff. Because when they go back to their home or their context, their parents or their context may either build up or destroy what we work with them. And it's really complex, it's really frustrating to see. I had, for example, one student who was really successful, top of the class. She was the best of all. But then last year in my New Year's celebration, I encountered her at a restaurant. I was really angry because I was telling her, what are you doing here? You were the top of the class. You believed that in me, but my parents didn't. And that's why I'm here, waiting tables. So how can we break these schemes and make it available to everyone, not only those who had the privilege to access formal education? Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Could you also tell me if you have this question for a specific panelist that you would like to respond to? Do you want to take it, Jackson? And Louise, if you have any thoughts on how we can integrate. Yeah, go on.
Penso que é essencial a escola ter vínculos profundos com a comunidade.
I think that's essential for a school to have strong relations with the community.
Lembro da minha experiência como professor de educação básica, professor de ensino médio, quando eu levei na minha aula de língua portuguesa uma música de uma escola de samba da comunidade onde a escola estava sediada e todos os estudantes sabiam cantar aquela música.
This reminds my experience as a high school teacher that I took to the classroom a song of a community from the community, and every student knew how to sing it.
E no Brasil tem um educador chamado Paulo Freire que sempre pregava muito essa aproximação entre escola e comunidade, a escola servindo como prática libertadora a partir do conhecimento de mundo de cada pessoa, de cada cidadão.
In Brazil, we have a really famous educator called Paulo Freire that defends the relation of community and the school. He thinks that the knowledge of the community is the key for the freedom of the society, and the school is the tool for it.
Para encerrar, o que eu penso que os governos deveriam fazer é de aprofundar em todos os momentos os laços da educação com a cultura, com a segurança, com a saúde, com todas as demais áreas, porque é assim, de forma integral, que a gente consegue construir política pública efetiva que possa promover a cultura de paz.
To sum up, I think that educational policy should have a transversal relation through culture, security, and the community. That is the only way to build.
Thanks. I'm just going to request also my panel to keep the answer short if possible. And I'm going to request the audience who's asking questions to also catch hold of our panelists during dinner. Remember to catch them. I know there are two more people who are interested in taking this question. I mean, I'm going to invite you first, and I'm going to request you to keep it short.
Well, that he asked whether how we can have peaceful education, like teach others who are living out of the school, who are not coming to the school. So for that purpose, we human want entertainment always, and everyone is interested in entertainment and in theater and these things. So through posters, or some theaters outside of the school, we can spread this idea, and as well some signs, some activities outside, like in parks, in some halls and these places, can help to spread this idea apart from school. So just by use the entertainment or make the entertainment in such a way that educate people, those who are interested in entertainment, so they can grab an idea out of that. Yeah, in a long run, it is only possible in long run, years and years. So it's a continuously. Yeah. Thank you.
I can also see hands this side. I'm sorry, Ingrid. Is it okay if I move that side? Yes, go on, Brownin. Try. So check.
Hey,
Yeah.
okay. So thank you for your question, and that's the exact answer that I was trying to give earlier on. I was nervous, so I'll go again. So at current, I am employed as a year beyond cluster mentor that runs the social and emotional learning curriculum, right? And we employ young people from the communities, which we call Yebones. The organization is called Young to 25 to run this curriculum in the schools with beneficiaries who are learners. Now, what we are currently strategizing about is how can we help these learners and the facilitators have an intentional system put up in place where collaborations are done with organizations, community leaders, for them to be able to practice the skill that they are learning. Because now you remember, the training that they are receiving or they are giving to the learners will impact them as well. So the intention needs to be about collective impact. The intention needs to be about collective work. So when you're thinking about rolling out a program, you constantly need to be cognizant about, firstly, the beneficiary, which is the learner, then either you as a teacher or either you as a facilitator, and then you move to the school system and the school structure. Because once you influence or once you roll out a program in a classroom, it has the power to impact the whole school. And once it impacts the whole school, we must remember our school system, our school is a system, and there are many systems in our society, such as the family, such as the school, such as higher education, and the political structures. And our school becomes a site for socialization. And once we groom our young people, they are able to, they about what's happening around them. And once we leverage on that, we have, which is the collaborations, the intentional mainstream collaborations that we have, that we tend to miss, because we want to work in silos. That's not going to help us. Working alone does not help us when we're trying to impact individuals and impact the community for the better. So it's intentional collaborations, always, always. Yeah?
Did she convince you enough? Huh? Okay, we see a lot of hands. Great. Just pass the mic, please. Panelists, you'd like to ask a question too? Just throw it directly at them.
It's basically open to all, like anybody can answer it. So my question is, like, can emotions like empathy, sympathy, or like even like diligence, like why can't this kind of qualities be embedded into citizens of like any like third world country or anybody? But we can see these kind of things happening in Japan. Japan is a prime example where we see even if the train is like 20 seconds, the driver, he comes down and like says sorry to everybody. So can peace education promote this kind of qualities in citizens of all the countries that like we are among?
You should take that question. You wanna? I can't hear over the other. You didn't hear the question? No. Okay. Did you? Yeah.
In fact, what you said is very true. In this very land, Mahatma Gandhi, when he listened to the story of Harishchandra, he realized the importance of truth. And he followed it by letter and spirit. So especially children at a very tender age, they are in a position to, understand, realize, and live up to those morality, ethics, and values if we teach them. The only problem is that if there is a value inconsistency, certainly they would slide to the side where it is easy for them, So that's the reason why we should not only engage the children, but also the community. In fact, the National Education Policy talks about that, active engagement with the community in order to educate the children. So this is very critical. Thank you.
And not just the NEP, I would say. I think we've been talking about it for many centuries ago also we were talking about it, honestly speaking.
Yes.
And just to more formalize it, I mean, we started even with the 2005 in the Indian context, the education policy and the framework itself talks about how these values need to be embedded. And it's not something that has to come from the outside. It's something that's constantly a part of who we are. And that's something that even, while even Pathikrit was talking about, just the whole idea of who, or the Eastern way of doing things, if I may say, at the cost of also being politically slightly incorrect here, but the Eastern sciences of even mindfulness have been rooted in our practices, right? And it's often also sort of mixed with religion and spirituality, but keeping that aside, the way education happened traditionally has a lot to offer. Yeah.
Can I just add one thing?
I knew he would. Go on.
Look, life is not just about sympathy. Sympathy is very important. Number one, if you go back to Mahabharata, Krishna told Arjuna, do your duty. Don't get emotionally weakened because of your sympathy for somebody. If the tiger starts sympathizing with the deer, it may end up saving the deer's family, but her own children will die. If your soldiers in the border start sympathizing with the terrorist, tomorrow we may not be existing here and having a peaceful dialogue. So the life, as we see it, is about balance between responsibility, sympathy, compassion, and doing what is important to do without having an emotional attachment to it. The problem with us, we are so much attached that we sometimes forget what is right, what is righteous, and what is avoidable. We always hear this concept of ahimsa paramo dharma, right? Now, how many of you know the entire sloka? The entire sloka is ahimsa paramo dharma, dharma hinsa tataivacha, which means non-violence should be the fundamental principle. Try non-violence always. But if, for the purpose of protection of the righteousness, if you have to take up arms, then take it up. In Mahabharata, Krishna in every way tried to prevent the war. He said, give us 5 villages for the 5 Pandavas. When Duryodhana refused to even give that, then he said, that's it. Now let's have a war. So ahimsa paramo dharma is very important, not if you exclude the other part. So what is important is, if you talk about martial arts, those who learn martial art are also told and taught primarily how to have self-control and not to use that power on wherever it's not necessary. So it is about having the balance in life. It is not just about compassion. Thank you.
I see a lot of hands. Let's do this. Can we, please do continue, sir. Can we also receive the questions, right? And then as we can probably just go around and each of us can respond to the question that we want to pick. Just make sure we're not duplicating our responses. Just totally in the interest of time. Yes, please go on. You can also talk.
Hello? Yeah.
Hear you.
So mine is a comment and a question. You talked about cognitive approach to peace education. And recently I did a study for my master's on comparison of Vedic education system with the modern education system. Out was the fundamental approach and philosophy behind both the education system. So the philosophy that we have behind peace education is same as we have behind modern day education system. So don't you think that what we are doing with modern day education is right here? So we are explaining what the machine does and what Vedic education was doing back in the day, what it put it here. Like it answers core thing, it should answer 3 what is this and who is that. So that gives you, like for instance, you are in a maze and you're finding doors and going here and there. Now suddenly someone puts you in a bird eye view and you can see the whole thing from above. So then you can find the ways easier. And the modern education system is like that. You are inside the maze. There are doors. You're going here and there and you're finding, like for instance, peace education also. We are taught that this is the conflict, this is how the conflict is working, this is the situation, these are the parties, this is the map, this is that. And you're exploring the ways. You're opening one door, they're finding other. Now instead, if we just put the person in the bird, find the solution. And that's what the ancient education system was doing. So my comment is, and question, whatever you might consider it, it's in that regards. Thank you.
Thank you for asking that. I am going to request for more. Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Jimena Gonzalez. I am the Mexican delegate for the Peace Building track. So it's very interesting to be having so today on this, specifically from women and people from countries from the global south. Peace building is a conversation that matters to everyone, obviously. And on that note, I would love to ask specifically the educators in the panel. I believe you're an educator from Nepal, so I would love to get your point of view on this. What is the role of youth from global south countries into the peace building processes that are being made today, especially when the opportunities and the areas and the spaces for peace building mostly come or are present in countries global north? So how today do we encourage women from people in
Mics, we could just pass these on. There are enough here.
My name is Vedika. I am Director of Peace Research. So my question is open to all the panelists. It is that considering the diverse cultural backgrounds of G20 member countries, how can India encourage the adoption of peace education while respecting local values and traditions? So I would want you to elucidate on that.
Did you get it? Sorry, can you repeat? Without the mic, perhaps? Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for having us. My name is Victoria. I'm from the Argentine delegation, also for Peace Building track. And my question has to do with the elderly, not only the youth, to warranty that we need in decision-making processes, because we are always invited to opinion, but we are not invited to the places where decisions are being made, not only about our future, but about our present. I'm 29. I've been a worker since I was 17 years old. I've been paying my taxes for over 12 years, but I haven't got a place in the tables where decisions are being made. So if we want the youth to participate, we need to guarantee a place where decisions are being made. How can we educate the people that already are in these spaces of power, making decisions for all of us, to let us a seat in that table, to let us not only give our opinion, but take lead in making our own decisions about our present? Thank you.
Yes, I was expecting that. Spoken like a true TAGe audience.
Hello. So, ma'am, my name is Moksha Sharma. I am a student of Masters in Conflict Management and Development from Malviya Center for Peace Research, PHU. So my question it's open to the entire panel. It is that how can the application of neuroscientific insights into emotional empathy and emotional regulation be integrated into conflict management strategies, especially within educational institution? Because given that we have such a diverse youth right now, presently in India, and such high number of them. So what kind of strategies can we employ given the diversity and the sheer number?
Hello, my name is Apurva Dwivedi, and I'm also from Malviya Center for Peace Research, BHU, and my question is for everybody. As we know about human instincts that they want to get ahead of what they already have, and also we... Is it okay? Okay. So I'll repeat my question, sir. As we know that about human instincts that they want to get ahead of what they already have, and we also have the scarcity of resources, so everybody is somehow chasing them. So how are we going to ensure that peace education can deal with that?
Did we get the question? I'm sorry, I did not. Can you just... What is the last one? What is the last one? I think the mics are just not working. Yes, can you be, if you can be loud, just shout it out.
As we know about human instincts that they want to get something new, what they already have, and we also have a scarcity of resources around us. So everybody is somehow chasing them. So how are we going to ensure that peace education can deal with that?
So basically her question is that there is limited resources and needs are unlimited. How do we balance that, if I have got it right?
Hello everyone. I just want to, I was saying this word, let's get real. And my narrative is I am born in a country and I am labeled as a citizen of that country. So whatever I have been living, I have a biasness for my society. Peace for you could be a war for me. The panelists sitting here introduce themselves as the people from different countries. So when we want to talk about peace, I think that perspective has to be changed. Because if you want to say let's get real, I think peace education in my ex-country, I'm a YS citizen, I'm a citizen of ex-country, so the peace education taught to me can be biased, which may be into a war for some other country. To get peace, I need war. If this is taught, I think this is a very right stage where we need to think globally what peace is, not as a country-wise. It's a small comment and we have people from education and young people to take this forward. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, we have more hands up.
Everyone, my question is for Ms. February from Africa. Africa is the continent which has faced and facing the highest rate of conflict or peace unrest. Can you please elaborate how the youth of Africa is ready to collaborate to bring that resilience towards peace, or if already doing, then what are their roadmap? Thank you, ma'am.
So he's asking how would youth of Africa play a bigger role in bringing peace, and what they are doing right now, because they've already got involved in that in the continent of Africa.
Yes, go on.
Hello everyone, my question is for the delegate of South Africa. We know that 3 decades back Nelson Mandela had achieved a watershed moment when he reconciled South Africa at the Loftus Verse Field, when he held the hand of Francois Pienaar. So what are your thoughts on reconciliation as a method of peace building and how it can be used to change the perceptions that prevail in our societal dynamics as a whole?
That was another one for you. Got the question, right?
How is it today?
Okay, more hands? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shivangi, and my question is about, what are the practical strategies for integrating peace education in daily behavior and mindset? Because as we know that when something is inculcated in your daily behavior, that will foster a long-term positive change. So what are the practical strategies that can be done to integrate that into our daily behavior? Thank you.
I can answer you right away.
Sure.
You don't have to stand, please. www.framerspace.com. No, it's not a joke. I'm serious. I mean it. Visit and you might get an answer there. There was a question at the back. Framerspace.com. F-R-A-M-E-R. Space.com. Yes, please go on.
My name is Sashank Shekhar. I am a student of International Relations in Banaras Hindu University. So, in the process of peace building, we have to focus on the victim childs of domestic violence because especially in financially poor families, that trauma make them vulnerable for the violent act, and due to the weak emotional quotient and lack of self-confidence, more vulnerable to the anti-social and anti-peace activities. So how can we tackle that problem, and how the government and civil societies can play their role in the making them, turning their potential which is going through anti-social or violent activities, turning into the collaborative development outreach.
We can have some of the discussions outside during the dinner, because all questions, some of those are not legible. You can explain to the persons and have it later on. I think there are enough questions now. If the panelists want to answer them, it's better.
Okay, let's just, I agree we should also take some of these questions outside, but maybe a very quick round, 30 seconds each on picking up and responding to your questions. And let's just do a very quick round. I'm sure all of our panelists have some response to the questions asked. And we're timing you.
My 30 seconds starts. In fact, women should be encouraged to have equal rights through not only political democracy, but also social, economic, and all forms of equality. And diversity does not mean that we do not have anything in common, and we should encourage those aspects which we have in common and promote that. And Gandhi said, we have for everybody's need, not for everybody's greed. I think that says many things about resources. And when it comes to poor, it is not the person who doesn't have money who is poor, but it is the person whose greed never ends. That person is the real poor person. Thank you.
So I had a couple of questions. So So I want to say to the lady from Mexico who asked about what the role of young people is in building peace education or building peaceful societies. I think in our program alone, in the program that we roll out, our program is specifically focused on building young people professionally and personally first. So they go through a year-long training of development. And in that phase of development, they are giving back to community. So there's already grooming of young people through young people like me who seek to change the environment and who seeks to change the reality. So it's about finding those nuggets, finding those young people who are willing to work and basically nurture young people to become the leaders of today and not tomorrow. Yeah? Coming from the context where I come from in South Africa, which I think we all know, I don't even want to say, but in the questions directed at me in terms of what is the role of young people, youth in Africa in terms of building peace. Me being here today is a sign of that, of the effortless work. I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal right here, right? It's about, again, young people. So last week, just last week, I've come out of a very, very, very deep, systematic political situation in South Africa in terms of systematic violence, systematic inequality, where our people are reliant on taxi minibuses. And these, I'm not going to go into the scenario of it, but in terms of, again, where I'm speaking about collaborations and collective work, I mean that. So leverage on the power of the young people that are like you sitting in this room. Intentionally build a network, and intentionally, alongside your work that you do in organization, intentionally work together in order to solve your problems. Because even in the organizations that you work with, you might be solving some problems, but there might be challenges, and bring that up and solve it. Because that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what a young girl and we had a discussion, and we started to create a Keiko Youth Collective. And Keiko, yeah.
Thanks. I'm going to pause you. On that note, also bringing your attention to getting real, which is, I think, something you spoke about as well. Thank you so much. Ajay, I'm going to invite you if you have any thoughts. And I know there is a question pending, but do catch up on dinner. Yes, go on, Ajay. 30 seconds.
Yeah, so somebody asks what Global South youth can do in peace education. Namaste. Well, you might be wondering how this answer can be. Well, do you know what the meaning of namaste? It means that the energy which is inside me respect the energy which is inside you. And that's the knowledge which is completely, very much popular in Global South. But do we really know that? And if you know that, let's communicate. There are many different such knowledge and concept in Global South, which somehow directs towards acceptance, somehow directs towards peace education. This part of the world have always respected knowledge over economy or wealth. You might have seen people, or even the king, touch the feet of a gurus. So that's our ground reality. So there are many things that we can do, and if you know something, anything about your culture, anything about your lifestyle, that is somehow promoting peace, communicate, because right now, even in this hall, there are people from different parts of the world. And we all have a unique story to tell, we all have a unique culture that somehow is helping us to have a peaceful society, peaceful community. Let's communicate. I think together, when we all start communicating all those little ideas which we have, definitely global peace is possible. Thank you.
Do you want to... Folks, we are running late for dinner, okay? Do you want to come in real quick?
Sure. Hello, all right. I think the questions that spoke to me the most, just listening to all of you, were the ones in regards to education and peace education from a bird's eye view. Oh, there we go. As well as incorporating peace education practices into your daily life. And so I think when we're looking at education and peace education from a bird's eye view, really what that does is gives us a deeper understanding of how global systems as they are today are entirely inaccurate and able to prevent us from achieving peace, because really the systems that we have are set up to main tower for those who are already in power. And so it's really important for us to recognize those limitations and to find joy in the challenge of overcoming those. And so that comes in really prioritizing the space that you encompass in your daily life. It doesn't mean jumping to the highest opportunities that you can find, because those are always going to be the most effective ways that you can achieve peace. Because in reality, peace for you may mean something completely different for someone else. And so if you prioritize the community and the family and the friends that you have, you're able to slowly work in the cracks of those global systems that we have so many problems with. And I think there's the space that we're all going to be the most successful.
Thanks, David. Go on. Here. 30 seconds.
All right. So one question arises that how we can educate like peace education, although without hurting the diversity of cultures and these things. So always we see that to gain something, we have to lose something at the meantime. We have to do some sacrifice. So for that purpose, to bring the culture of peace, like a peaceful society, then we need to like slowly remove or get diverted from the old culture so we can live with the new culture. So the answer for this is like we have to sacrifice. Yeah, we have to sacrifice in some stage to gain what we want. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, go on, Ingrid.
Eu vou falar em português para ser um pouco mais rápida. Primeiramente. Can you speak? Okay.
Yes,
oh, thank you. First, I want to say that school is very important to the social and emotional learning because it's in the school that the staff of the school can recognize the violence comportment of the kids. But the school is not the only place that have to be this comportamento desse. A escola não é o único lugar que pode ter essa obrigação. This is not one problem only of the school. Yes, I can. And when we say that the communities have a big important part in this. So we have to call the community to talk with the people about this and asking the Committee of Argentina and how you can do the youth people helping and the occupations a different place. And I think the youth is the more important people for change the situation. Because when we get the youth people, the power, the space, and the chance to take and listen and learning about this, we can make a difference in the situation. I think it's that.
Ingrid. Okay. Thanks, Ingrid. Jackson, I'm going to skip you just for a little bit because just to be fair to both our panelists who haven't had a chance to answer the questions. So, Louis, I'm going to go right to you. Thanks. Thanks.
No, Huey will read it.
Go on.
Huey will read it in English. Huey will read it
Okay. We'll come back in if we have more time.
Thanks.
Go on.
I just want to respond to the lady who asked about getting a seat at the table. I think in Ireland we have had the discourse of student voice and have students involved and youth involved in decision making for a long time, and we've recently moved into actioning those. So on our National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, which is a board of representatives, we have students on that board. They've recently been part of that. So to answer the question on how do you get onto the table, into the seats, it takes moving beyond just values and beliefs to actually living those and modeling that behavior. And that takes leadership and vision. So to go back to the family analogy that we used at the beginning, that we are all part of the family, but that family needs the leaders to take those steps that can bring everybody together. And it is possible, it's difficult, but it is possible to move into those spaces. And in Ireland, we're very happy to have anybody who wants to come over and see how it's done or ask us some questions. We'd love to have you. So thank you.
Thanks, Lewis. That's so important. That's actually democracy in practice. So well done. Thank you for sharing. Yes, Himanshu.
Thank you.
Go on.
On the seat,
Yeah.
maybe more than 40. For the team, for the seat at the table, at least UNESCO, MJIP and UNUC have tried to, especially in the field of peace building, brought together 1,100 voices from people actually working in communities and built together first policy document that would be launching this year called State of PVE report for policies for prevention of violence in South Asia. So I think that's happening. But how to operationalize them is another constraint. I think that requires the entire reimagination of education at is. So there is a particular poem, you might have heard this, is we wanted to evaluate what children learned, so we collected data. Then children only learned what could be converted into data, then children became data. So that's where we are. And to be able to really bring peace education, to be able to operationalize this, require reimagination of the entire structure that makes education possible. A couple of months back, I was running a workshop for education ministers and departments of South Asia. in that place, we just had a mock discussion in which everybody role played one particular part of the system. Somebody was a student, somebody was a policymaker, principal, teachers. Turns out to be well-meaning policy documents would have a hard time getting off the ground because these voices aren't present in the places policies are being made. Teachers are overburdened, they have a lot of work to do. We can't just throw a set of activities at them and expect them to do everything and to fight every evil that lives outside of the classroom. And for that purpose, we need to bring all the voices on the table, and I guess TAGe is one of those places which have been at least trying to do that.
Thank you, Himanshu, and thank you for talking about the tag. That's true, that's been the attempt through this. We are way past our time, we're 27 minutes late. So we would like to close for now, and I want to thank you all, the audience, for such fantastic questions, and our panelists for such interesting and insightful conversations, and the people who've joined us through the social media and online through our live streams. Thank you for joining and watching us. On behalf of the entire team of UNESCO MGIEP, we thank you for this wonderful learning opportunity. Have a great dinner.